All right, I'm back and I'm back and I'm back with you again, and I am your host, Giovanni the Great. Now, in this, I'm going to talk about how good intentions pave the way. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. And this is all rooted in how people like to think of themselves as do-gooders, social justice warriors, the general social justice warrior that's more liberal, I'm talking, have a lot of good intentions. But you know something? When push comes to shove, do they really practice what they preach oftentimes? You have to ask yourself that. They look out for their best interests like anyone else, but often want to accuse conservatives of looking after their best interests when they do it themselves. Or they like to make people think they're a unite the world type, all peoples, all colors, all creeds come together to fight the system, but they themselves live in their own little bubble, probably isolated, loners. Yeah, maybe in some ways they're not as sad as some of these alt-right clowns that are the childish right, but they're still hypocrites. It doesn't take away the fact that they can be hypocrites. You know? They more than likely may play their video games and smoke pot, and sometimes a lot of them do hard drugs of some kind. It could be mushrooms, it could be pot, maybe not heroin or coke or anything, but they still do like mushrooms, they'll do pot, they'll do all these other hallucinogen type drugs. The social justice warrior types, some of them will do that. And they claim they see the world from another light or another perspective because they're doing these drugs. But it's just... But when push comes to shove, they're by themselves. They want people to think they're agreeable, they're sociable, they're this, they're that, but they're introverted loners when they're in their own homes. They live in their bubble. Like I said, most people now look out for their best interests, and surprisingly, this demographic people does too. I mean, half the time they don't even want to be bothered with most of the people they claim they want to bring together, and that can be very inconsistent. So yeah, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and everybody looks out for themselves, you know. It's okay, you have to look out to yourself to some point, but it's to extremes now, like where someone may like to make you think something can be a friendship, even though you have conflicting views sometimes. They claim they can still be friends, but they can turn around and backstab you or say, oh, I already gave it to somebody else when you come looking for it, you know, oh, because thinking they might have held it for you or something. And it's, oh, you didn't come fast enough. I had to give it to someone else, despite the fact I had conversations with them. They say they might want you around to do something, whether it be to agree to a deal with them or whatever the hell. So it's best to avoid these people, frankly, because a lot of these SJW types here, they have what you call good intentions, but they have plenty of demons of their own, and they're not as social as they like to let on. They're very hermit-like. Actually, they may hide in their rooms, they may smoke pot and play video games or whatever the case may be, but will seem agreeable, talkative, like they can be in a social setting. But there's people maybe who have a slight about them. Like there was another guy I knew, the one there that I mentioned, I think in a story or something. I lived with the guy for a little bit. He was one of those types too. He wanted to believe everyone could get together and fight the system or whatever, or he laughed at any notion that you could be conservative or whatever. If someone had conservative views like me, he wasn't afraid to admit that my conservative views pissed him off. To a point. Once you're red pilled, it's tough to go back. Even if you want to get out of it, you can't. It's always going to be in you. It's some reasons that's very good, but you have to control it too. You can't be the extreme, but you can be maybe over half or 3/4 what you were, but just not all the way, if that makes sense. But I'm having a change in my life. I'm really trying to analyze things and fix some things that have been wrong. And I have to cut certain people out of my life, but I also don't want to bring new ones from other circles that bring other problems, like that SJW type crowd that I'm mentioning. Yeah, you might meet people here and there, a couple, depending on a deal of living arrangement or whatever the case. Usually it's living arrangements for me. And they find ways to screw you too. Like that guy I was mentioning in Florida that I dealt with. He was too fucking lazy to put a door up. I had to pay for the fucking door and supply it. And I left the place. I wasn't taking the door with me. And because I supplied him with that, I felt I deserved my whole security deposit back. And he accused me of looking after my best interests when I took off without a 30-day notice. But it was an emergency, because I was going to go to jail over the fat fuck that he kept in his house that he would not remove. And he was pissing me the fuck off, and I kept trying to tell him and tell him and tell him and tell him. But he was easy on him. They had some sort of a relationship. It was either that or I go to jail. And I told him that I was going to fuck that guy up if he was staying in that place. So much for a guy who likes to preach equality, he's for the people. That's a bunch of bullshit. He was a landlord who was younger. He only wanted to make his money, and that's it. And he wanted to cash out when the time was right. But because, and for the short time he was there, he's had drama and everything. But you bring that on your goddamn self. But people who have these so-called good intentions, they claim they're for the people. They claim that they want everyone to have equal rights and they want to bring the planet together. They really can't practice this. And I was on the borderline of dealing with another one of these people, and it was a blessing that I didn't really deal with him for that long. Now that I'm looking back and analyzing the situation, some of these people talk about how they're honest to get you in. They talk about, how they're honest, they want to make everything right, they want to be accommodated, but then if someone else comes along, they disregard any interaction they ever had with you and go with them, because I didn't get there fast enough. Well, excuse me, I don't live there to be there every day, But that's cool, because I saw how he really is. I saw his true colors, and just because I'm trying to disown a certain circle of clowns, like, say, the alt-right or a lot of the right now, it doesn't mean I want to add new problem people from other social circles, even if they claim to have good intentions more so than the alt-right. The fact is, a lot of them talk a good story too. And I often dream is where they're not seeing reality. They do too many drugs for my good, for my own liking. Even if it isn't cocaine or heroin or meth, they still do enough drugs. You know what I mean? And they're cracked out, half of them. Alright, that's all I'm going to say right now. It's best to not live by labels. Get out of the alt-right. Get out of the alt-left. Get out of Antifa. Stop fucking feeding into it. Because even the people, they may be on the extreme left, they have good intentions. Tom Hartman, I bet he thinks he has great intentions, but in actual practice, does he invite any of these people for dinner? He says he's going to have lunch with certain people, but I don't know. I think you still have to be a certain person that he picks to be appropriate. Still, he'll look at someone. I'm not going to do it now. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, right? I think that's it for now. I think I've done enough on this. I just want to try this topic out, see what happens.